She would be for it, definitely. That was one of the things that really upset her as she was, researching, doing the paper, is that, women couldn't, pick up a weapon and go out there and be infantry or artillery. That bothered her a great deal. I think that's why her path of military police, plus her love of law enforcement, led her to the military police, because she could be the closest she could possibly get to it.
Now, as a parent who had a daughter killed in action, what do you feel about the ban being lifted?
I've always been a firm believer in letting my children choose their path of life. I've given them the guidance that I can, but I feel that if any women, feel that they can, accomplish this and feel accomplished themselves in doing this, then that's what they need to do.
So do you see it kind of as an acknowledgement of the changing times?
Yes, definitely. Women are getting stronger, and their will is stronger. They want that challenge the same as some men. So I can see where, it definitely would help. And I see where women could be of more help.
Now, critics are arguing that women in combat roles, saying they could be a distraction and that women wouldn't be able to do some of the more physically demanding jobs that men could do. What's your reaction to that, and what would your daughter's reaction to that be?
Well, she weighed maybe 110 pounds and was 5'7", and she was as strong as a mule. She could pretty much accomplish everything. And, when she was in her unit, she had the utmost respect of all of her colleagues or her comrades that she was with. I don't think that they would have ever felt that she could not accomplish any task that was asked of her. So I would have to say that in some ways, it could be a distraction, but at the same time, if men and women would look at other women as this, that they can be strong and they can be of help, then we would probably be a lot whole better off.
We could probably also say that a lot of men couldn't do this job as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know of numerous people that, that men that I had talked to that said I could never even go in the military, let alone do the job that Devin did.
Tell us a little bit about Devin and looking back at her military career and her life.
As a 7th grader, she always wanted to be in a branch of the military, and then the closer to her senior year, she wanted, definitely the Army, and it was because it was a challenge. I believe she always had a 300 PT score, which is the highest you could get. I think she was a good motivator. If anybody was down in her unit, she was the first one to pick them up. She just never, let somebody stay behind, even through AIT and basic training. Numerous people came up to us during the graduation and had told us that, if it wasn't for your daughter, I would have never made it, because she always made sure when she finished, she came back and got me and made me finish. And that always, that's always kind of sat with me, that she always looked out for someone else. She was always there to guide somebody and be there for them.
And that sounds like someone who you'd want in the combat zone.
Absolutely. She even, the Christmas before she was killed, had said, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
No, she did tell me that she would take a bullet for any of her comrades because they were her family. And she says, if I would protect them, I would protect you. So, in that aspect, that was part of her personality, is to protect and be a warrior.
Deneen Snyder, mother of Sergeant Devin Snyder, we thank you so much for joining us today here on WNYC.
You're welcome.
Tomorrow morning, tune in to WNYC and get up to speed on what's ahead. Economics in Washington, the recovery in the Rockaways, These are challenging issues for make it or break it times. You need more than information. You need the nuances behind the news and discussions as diverse as our communities. Be a morning person. It's never too late to start early. WNYC. Never turn it off.
More than 2 months ago, Sandy's floodwaters filled the basement of Bellevue Hospital like a bathtub, and it's still drying out. Crews have placed floppy orange ventilation tubes around the subterranean space to act as a huge dehumidifier.
And they're constantly drawing the air and drying out the air to prevent any kind of mold or any kind of buildup from the moisture that was in the basement.
Chief Engineer Patrick O'Brien is one of hundreds of workers laboring around the clock to restore Bellevue to full operation by early February. Most of the hospital has been closed since November. WNYC's Fred Mogul recently visited, and he reports on some things the country's oldest public hospital has learned while putting itself back together.
Earlier this month, a ferry crash on the East River sent dozens of people to hospitals around Manhattan. Reporters descended on the scene.
Reports of people being taken from the ferry by the FDNY.
The Bellevue Hospital emergency room went into high gear. 31 passengers were brought in for treatment, all with minor injuries. But despite their bruises and bandages and the attention they received from doctors and nurses, Dr. Susie Vasallo says the scene was missing something. The most seriously hurt patients from the crash.
We had the lesser injured patients.
That's because Bellevue currently can't handle serious traumatic injuries.
We don't have an operating room yet, and we always have to have that kind of backup for any critical trauma.
Vasallo is standing in the ER on a quiet weekday morning as patients file in with flu symptoms. Since reopening in December, the Bellevue ER has been doing only partial duty. For the moment, it doesn't have an upstairs to send patients for surgery or keep them overnight for observation. Recently, Dr. William Goldberg arrived on his ER shift to find a stabbing victim and come in and been transferred to another hospital.
He was probably fine, but because we don't have all the resources that we normally have, they basically just packaged him up and shipped him over to Cornell.
It's a point of pride among staffers that Bellevue usually takes all comers, whether they have a bad stomachache or a gunshot.